everybody. Welcome to inPsight Radio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. Happy week. How is everybody? Are you getting some sunshine? I mean, there is some seriously crazy weather hitting the United States right now. Holy moly, I've got all kinds of friends in the Midwest that are telling me about these multiple tornadoes and just flooding and horrible, horrible storms that they're having. And we up in Montana are having an unusually long and wet and dreary spring because, Jiminy Christmas, we're just knocking on June here and nothing's happened yet in terms of really hot, warm sun, except for over Mother's Day. We had some of that over Mother's Day. So we're basically getting the weather that, myself and many people who work in my field have been looking at over the last 2 or 3 years. We've been looking ahead and the Sci-Fi Channel weather that's been coming up has just been really, really rough. So just sending a big hug to all my friends in the Midwest because you all are getting some seriously hefty, weird spring weather. And gang, we really do just kind of need to brace up, just weather-wise, kind of from now till whenever the earth just keeps turning. Because our weather, this is our new normal. All those crazy, just whacked out tornadoes all over the place and heavy flooding and heavy raining. And we're going to see more raining and more flooding in our Midwestern states. So all my Northwest and Midwest friends, especially Northwesties, it's going to weirdly extra rain for you guys. Yet I don't see the flooding that we're going to be getting in the Midwest. So Midwesties, just, make sure that you have access to clean water, okay? Because we're going to be getting some water contamination issues as the flooding continues and washes all the toxins and the nitrates and whatnot into the aquifers and the drinking water. And I'm not trying to frighten anybody. I'm just saying, just have some drinking water available. Make sure that you've got some in storage and just make sure that you've got, the availability to kind of go Old West with the weather, camp indoors. We, in the Old West out here, we're really used to camping amidst really crazy weather. So we just, when it snows, it snowed. We are at the very, very end of May, and it snowed up in Red Lodge, Montana. It snowed 8 inches. And we're getting ready to knock on June. Kids are getting out for summer. This is crazy. Summer vacation is here. Yet this is our new normal, everybody, for our weather. So just FYI, this is what we can be looking forward to. Good times, good times. So today on our show, that sounds so funny. Today on our show, I was really inspired by the angelic kingdom to bring forward some sociological messages on what we can look forward to coming up in the next really year and a half. But we're going to just go through the end of 2019 into 2020, what we can be looking forward to in the United States. And many of you have been seeing, roughly 200,000 different political candidates arising. And in the Democratic field, I think they're up to 22 candidates now. Heck, the governor of Montana is running. He's running for president. Steve Bullock. So, everybody's got their hat in the ring. And I've heard rumors that there is a Republican contender that wants to step up and run against the president. I don't know how that works. The Republicans' rules are different than the Democrat rules. So I'm not sure if they're allowed to or if they're supposed to or what goes on there. Yet everybody is emerging for this seat. And, it's easy to criticize folks who want to step up and run for president and say, oh, they're just looking for power, or, oh, that's low-hanging fruit because look at our current presidency and the mess it's in. Or some people think it's not a mess. Some people think it's doing great. Some people think it's chaos. So we've got a lot of people stepping up, really, to put their hat in the ring. And we've got very non-traditional presidential candidates, right now. One of them being Marianne Williamson, who you may know as the author of A Course in Miracles. She's a New York Times best-selling author, a metaphysical gal. Years and years and years and years ago, she used to do readings. She's pastored churches, and now she's running for president. So, with all these people running for president, we've got a lot. We've got a lot going on. And this isn't a political broadcast. It's just talking about what we can be expecting in the United States in terms of consciousness through 2019. And people have been really worried. I did a whole podcast on whether or not we were actually going to get into a civil war. And no, we're not going to get into a civil war. There may be more unruly behavior between factions of people, yet the civil war portion is not quite there. Yet I'm watching some things come to pass here that I wanted to talk about because back in 2018, 17 to 18, and actually a couple of times on inPsight Radio here on the podcast, I've been talking about how there's been a big group of people out there in the United States stratosphere who really have a vested interest in all of us fighting and not getting along. And I've done podcasts and blogs and guest spots on different shows all about how this group has been literally just begging for a civil war because this group wanted to declare martial law in order to turn around and incite control. Now, I know that sounds super conspiratist, right? I mean, that's like insanely conspiratist sounding. Yet the fact of the matter is, gang, the powers that be, that aren't the powers that you think they are, the consumerist powers that be have completely lost control of the United States. We don't sit there and just get programmed like good little citizens watching our boob tube like we used to in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and early to mid 2000s. We don't just sit there and swallow our messages through all kinds of odd commercials. We don't just sit there and get programmed through our literal programming, through the device that used to strobe and affect the prefrontal cortex of the brain. Doesn't strobe anymore. Flat screens don't strobe in the same way that tube TVs did, especially not with that giant electromagnet in the back, which really affected brain activity. Yet we're not sitting there and behaving like we used to for the consumerist, I'm going to call it the consumerist sociopathic drone out there wishing us to act in a certain way. We're not buying all the sodas like we used to. We're not buying all the hamburgers like we used to. We're not buying all the medications like we used to. We're actually separating from that consciousness and separating from that very myopic viewpoint of who we were supposed to be, who we were getting programmed to be. I mean, the era of jingles. Do y'all remember jingles? Remember jingles? As a little kid, you just walked around singing them. And they had very talented songwriters who used to write jingles because the power of music to imprint emotionality on the psyche is massive. So they were hiring people like Barry Manilow, who used to write just a ton of jingles. And you remember, it's gonna be a great day. Remember that one? I mean, there was just tons and tons as I was growing up as a kid. Lots and lots. So we are not falling in and spending our money as an American consumer culture like we used to. In fact, almost half of the money that used to go into the general commerce system and through the banks and through the credit cards and all the ways that we used to spend money have now been diverted to PayPal and Square and these independent providers. And that caused a major ripple in banking. I mean, when you look at massive major banks that are struggling all over the place, big credit card companies that are trying to merge, that are promising people bonuses and cutting them out. I mean, this is a mass evolution in consciousness for the United States of America. Now look, before you say, Danielle, how can you say that? Because we're still building a wall and there's still people that believe that anybody who does not have perfectly white skin should not live in America. And people who want to marry the same gender should absolutely not because it ruins families everywhere. Traditional families, of course. Before you all say that to me, let me remind you that all of that really intense behavior the racist behavior, the anti-Semitic behavior, the school shootings, the anti-LGBTQI behavior. You notice how weird it is now, right? You notice how it hits you like you're watching some medieval jousting match where nobody's winning and everybody smells like a giant armpit? Okay? I mean, do you notice how out of place sexism is all of a sudden? I mean, even in the last 2-3 years, grabbing somebody by the P word is just not okay anymore. It never was okay, but it's really not okay. So do you notice the massive consciousness changes that we've gone through in the United States in a very short amount of time, gang? This has really been a 3-year period, or maybe even 2. It's been a 2-year period. So everybody that wants to rail against the presidency of Donald Trump and talk about how it ruined America and it's just terrible and we're never going to get back to where we were. Listen, President Trump isn't necessarily my personal cup of tea in terms of temperament in the presidency, okay? I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. However, I can see the guy doing his job like a mad thing, and that guy and all of his cronies and all of the people that were actually heavily addicted to the old world and actually believed that they were going to get away with everything they're trying to get away with, which is hilarious. I mean, it's just hilarious. When I look at all these timelines and how everybody's just bursting into theoretical flames in, wringing their theoretical mustaches and hands. And I look at this and I'm like, what the heck? And some of these folks are people that would surprise you. Some of these folks fall into the Democratic side of things. Some of these people buying in on all the big business weirdness that's happening at the top of our nation right now are not the lock and step Republicans. Okay. So when we want to look at Donald Trump and say, you are what is wrong with our country, really? We ought to be patting the guy on the back as he makes a quick exit. And he's about ready to make a quick exit. And I'll get to that in a minute. However, we ought to be patting him on the back because had it not been for his unwavering brand of hubris, had it not been for his swaggering commitment to an identity that he had to build for himself in order to literally protect himself from his father, I really honestly have a lot of empathy for that guy, for Donald Trump. And that makes a lot of people angry, actually, like full on, full tilt, teeth grinding angry in my field when I say that I have compassion for Donald Trump. And I really, really do. I mean, that guy might have been born into a wealthy family, yet he was born into a family that had really no basis for human connection. It was all what you could do on paper. And I'm sure in whatever way his parents could love, they loved him. Yet, like I say this all the time in this podcast, when Donald Trump's dad tucked him in and his siblings, he wouldn't say, I love you, good night, sleep well. You know what he would do? He'd say, you are killers and you are kings, and close the door. Night-night, honey. So we've got this person in office right now who has brought out this consciousness of illusion, this emperor's new clothes consciousness, like nobody's business, like nobody ever has in the United States. I mean, there were delusional people all over the place crawling out of the woodwork talking about how there's this deep state thing. And I'm not saying if you believe in the deep state you're delusional. I'm saying that there were people who were delusional, who came out all over the place and were literally spouting vitriol and hatred and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I can't actually believe that the reason that they came out for Donald Trump was because they were Republicans. I mean, he represented a consciousness that these people had never, ever seen in a public political forum before, and it empowered the heck out of them. So these folks came forward, not everybody. I mean, I know lots of folks who just voted for Trump because the R was next to his name, so they just went for it. Yet, what we see now with the way that the government is sort of unraveling and the way that we're watching Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez be treated on the progressive Democratic side, we're watching an old system just die right before our eyeballs. And the fact that all of these cronies of Donald Trump's and Mitch McConnell, and I mean, Mitch McConnell actually has way deeper roots than old Don. Don just kind of surfed in there on a lark. Mitch McConnell has been working hard to get his roots real deep and work his back end stuff for the money for a long time. So when we're so angry about government, it's important to remember it's not just one person, and it's not just one party, and it's not just one modality. We are getting an opportunity to see a consciousness in play that enabled lots of people to step forward with what they actually really thought. And I have to tell you, as somebody who does not share racist opinions, as somebody who does not share anti-LGBTQI opinions, as somebody who does not share nationalist opinions, I'm just speaking for myself here. I was a little shocked. That there was such a big consciousness in the United States that was so angry. And, it's so funny. I have people in my field who are like, Danielle, you key into the United States every day. How could you not feel this? Well, I could feel angry people, yet the hubris and the rage and the I'm going to be heard, it's my turn, weird sort of like, I don't know, 1970s modality of look at me, I'm in pain and I'm suffering. And I was just kind of like, wow. And I'm talking about the people, the look at me, I'm in pain, I'm in suffering. That was this consciousness that came forward from people who were in pain and who were suffering and who felt marginalized and ignored. And a lot of them were pretty low-income folks. And it's a myth that everybody who's a poor, low-income folk voted for Donald Trump. That's a complete myth. I know lots and lots and lots of extremely educated, very wealthy, very successful people who voted for Donald Trump. So, you can't sit here and pigeonhole. What I'm talking about is how the consciousness was allowed to come forward so we could see what really needed to be healed. So when I'm talking about the United States going through 2019 into 2020, it's going to ramp up because there's going to be an attempt on both parts of both political parties. Well, Donald Trump is a professional polarizer. That's what he does. However, even in the Democratic side, there's going to be an attempt to polarize us into groups. Okay? Now, the polarization process politically used to work in the old world. They would get up there, think about the 18 and 1900s, and some guy would stand up there with a glass of lemonade and a straw hat, and he'd talk about how everybody there was going to get a free glass of lemonade. And everybody there it was good American lemonade, and all good Americans deserve a glass of lemonade. And people who think that the people who don't like lemonade aren't good Americans. I mean, this has been starting since the 1800s, gang. So I want you, as you go into this 2019 to 2020 cycle, pay attention to the messaging of these political candidates, because a lot of these people, whether they come from your flavor of cabinet or not, a lot of these people come from a very contentious old world background where you have to fight. We're going to fight. How do you want to bring the fight to the table? And some of my favorite candidates right now still talk like that. And it just makes me cringe. It's not about fighting for what we need. It's about evolving and ascending and problem solving. We don't need to fight each other anymore. It's not the time for fighting. It's the time for coming together and bringing our best brilliance in solving some serious weather and climate problems that we're going to have dumped on our head in the next upcoming year and a half, 2 years. I mean, we're going to have severe weather changes in the next year and a half to 2 years. So at the same time that we're watching all our political candidates get up there and talk about fight, we are also going to be watching massive flooding and, states of emergency be declared. I mean, we're going to have a choice. And the choice is going to be, do we just stick our fingers in our ear and rock back and forth and suck on a piece of yarn and go la, 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 and ignore the fact that we've got to come together in America in order to heal what's coming up? Or do we just come together in America and heal what's coming up? It's phenomenal. We really went into a heated, contentious place from the 2016 election. 2016 into 17 into 18, those were some rough, ugly years. Not talking to family members because of political issues. People claiming that one group of people is oppressing them and then they turn around and oppress everybody else. I mean, it really got ridiculous. Yet what I'm seeing is this consciousness shift all over the place where people are tired of the fight. So I have to wonder, when these political candidates are stepping up saying, we're going to fight, and President Trump's up there going, I'm in the fight of my life, and fight. And all I can see is a dead old world. All I can hear are these angels saying the old world has passed away. The new realm is upon you. And I think that these folks saying fight, that's what they've been taught to say. They've got professional people that coach them to actually rally people. Because again, remember people, there's a lot of folks out there who are still lost in the matrix and illusion of the old world. And they actually think that that's the reality. And they actually think that you have to do things like, die of certain diseases, or that you have to go through horrible menopause symptoms. I mean, these things do happen, certainly. Yes, they do. Yet this mandate that we're all supposed to labor in this third dimensional, flat, weird place where we fight with one another because the consumerist drone is trying to get us to spend money on, sodas that eat out our liver, so we're on medication the rest of our life. I mean, it is just the insanity of the old world is so present right now. Don't you think? Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? It's actually not ironic. It's perfectly planned because the universe has been talking to me this whole time about the consciousness that we can choose to enact as we go into this next phase of 2019 into 2020, because we can fall back right into that old world political weird, tell me what you think, take my survey and then pay me at the end, or my survey doesn't go through. We can fall in line with the you're only a patriot if you blah messaging. Or we can step back and watch how weird this is and bring in new world ideas. I'm not endorsing any political candidate at all, especially right now. Yet it's interesting to me that Marianne Williams is really the only person who is, at least on the Democratic side. I don't know who they're going to offer up on the Republican side besides Donald Trump. Yet Marianne Williamson is really the only candidate besides, I guess Kamala Harris has been doing it some on the Democratic side, who's talking about evolving our consciousness in order to heal our country. Now, granted, of course, she's the one that wrote A Course in Miracles. And granted, hardly anyone is taking her remotely seriously as a presidential candidate because she's not using those words like fight. And I think it's going to be interesting because you watch yourself, okay? You just watch your internalized cellular makeup. Watch your spirit body as we grow closer to the time frame of the 2020 election. You're going to be a lot more sensitive to stuff that you weren't before. You're going to be a lot more sensitive to certain verbiage. You're going to be a lot more sensitive to weird tricks of polarization that are supposed to get you on board. You're going to be more sensitive to the same old. And why? Because good old Donald Trump belly flopped into the presidency on an absolute tweak of the gerrymandered lines. And I was going to say will of the gods, but the will of Russia and the will of the American people. And there goes Donald Trump. And thanks to his willingness to actually swear in, we're having this discussion of how the United States of America, people think it's gone backwards. It hasn't gone backwards, gang, because many of us are deeply noticing that the things like racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, all this icky weirdness that doesn't need to exist because we really should just be banding together as humans to figure out how to purify water before we don't have any pure water. When we look at this, we've had this 2-year experience of absolute polarization, and everybody's coming out of it right now. So if you happen to be a presidential candidate who's actually listening to this podcast, I would highly encourage you to stop using the words fight. We're going to fight, fight, fight. People are over fighting. Trust the chick who actually interfaces with all living things, okay? People are over the fight. Sure, we need to stand in the gap. Sure, we need to come together. How about substituting that word with, we're going to come together to heal. We're going to come together to rebuild. Not, we're in the fight of our lives. If you're in the fight of your life right now, then especially if you're a political candidate, you're in the wrong dimension. I mean, I can't even say wrong time era. You're in the wrong dimension. We shifted back to the dimension of love from the dimension of chaos. I covered that in the podcast. So here we're back in the dimension of love. And what does love want to do? Love wants to heal. Okay? So what we're looking at in the United States of America coming up in the next couple of years is a real division in how we proceed as a nation. We're going to be watching massive, massive money changes. And one of those reasons is we're going to have stock market hiccups because we're going to have a president of the United States who really wouldn't surprise me if he resigns and gets the heck out of Dodge as a private citizen. Because if you try to run away as a leader that has legal implications, or you've done something illegal as a leader and you try to run to another country, the world rules basically say, you got to cough that leader up because that leader did something wrong and we need him back or her back. So right now it's in Donald Trump's best interest, of course, to stay president because of all this stuff that they've got down the pike that's coming for him. Yet, he's a massive flight risk. And people say he's a pawn. Well, he's a front guy, gang. Of course he's a front guy. Poor Donald Trump. Did you know, we're sitting here looking at these tax returns or what we could see of the tax returns. And this poor guy has built this entire image of him being this business mogul, right? Yet his businesses, we're claiming all these crazy losses, which you can do in business, of course. Yet to the degree that he was claiming losses, it was insane. So that kind of either leads and leans towards tax fraud, which is, by the way, what Al Capone got popped on. Al Capone didn't go to Alcatraz because he was a mob boss who killed people. He went to Alcatraz for tax fraud. So Donald Trump is sitting here and they've got his financials and he's trying to sue the bank so that they don't cough his financials. Everybody quit worrying about the play-by-play on this because everybody's going to see where Trump's interests lies. That's the end of the story. So I hate to be a spoiler, but that's what happens. So all of this information comes forward and we're going to see a really weird turn of events in his money. It's like, where's all this mystery money coming from? And, at one time he was claiming to have massive losses in certain areas and then claiming to make massive interest in other areas, yet where the interest was and the losses didn't match up. So, I just sit here looking at Donald Trump and I think of his dad poking his head in, saying, "You are killers and you are kings. Flick the light off, close the door." God. And Donald Trump is not an only child, so he's got siblings. Yet he was the one that got to front the Trump dynasty. And I really believe, as I feel, and this is just my psychic take on all of this, obviously. This whole podcast is my psychic take on all of this. Yet when I look into the ethers and I look between the pieces and I look at this money, because money has a vibration. When you hear that saying, follow the money? Oh, gang. No, seriously, if you're wired like me, you want to follow the money. Because if you follow the money, you're going to find the vibration that is attached to the money and why the money was spent. No kidding. Money is the energy of money is the biggest tell in the world because it goes through so many people's intentions. Think about it. You can't spend money without an intention behind it. Okay? So, not just follow the money trail, follow the money energy. And when I feel into the Trump dynasty, what I realize is old Donnie Trump, poor little dyslexic Donald, who I don't know if he's technically dyslexic, but when I look into how he reads things and he switches words around, it's phenomenal that guy has faked it till he made it to the point that he did, honestly. And I think he had to do that as a means of surviving underneath of his father, who, that I can see through Donald Trump's memories. He loves his dad, yet, wow, not a lot of puffy there, okay? So I see all this money, and I basically see Donald Trump's whole empire, his whole business, looks like a money laundering and operation for his dad. It looks like a tax shelter for his father the whole time. And so here you've got this young man who's trying to earn favor with his father, and his father recognizes that Donald Trump, out of all of the siblings, has some kinks in his armor that maybe the other kids didn't, and was definitely seeking approval, and would definitely fall in line to whatever dad wanted. And dad has a ton of money. So dad needs to launder some of that money out so it doesn't go into, taxable income. And so Donald Trump, his patsy, he's a patsy for all of this old laundered, weird, hidden money. That's what it looks like to me. And I look at this and I think, geez, that's all he could do was just play the big boss, play the role of the big boss. It's almost like dad said, look, son, you're never going to go anywhere. I need to launder a bunch of money. I need to run it through tax shelters. I need to do something here to really make sure that nobody knows exactly where my resources are. So I need you to be in on this with me. And you call it Trump dynasties, and I'm just going to live my life. And in the meantime, Donald Trump got to play up his brand in the 80s. And in the 80s, we were so stupid. Oh, God. Well, I think in the 80s, a lot of people were really high on coke and sex. I'm not, and hairspray. Lord, I had big hair in the 80s. Oh, my. Yet, if we look at the 80s, we just bought everybody at their facade. That was the lesson of the 80s. It was a spiritual lesson in illusion. So Donald Trump comes into the scene in the 80s and he's trumping it out and he's, his brand is there. So we've got this guy whose entire life has just been literally, when I follow the energy of the money, basically he's been a patsy for his dad. I mean, wow. And then built something, built a brand, built a personality. And later in his life, he had the TV show, The Apprentice. And I think for the very first time in Donald Trump's life, he actually got to be seen for himself. Well, his caricature of himself or whoever he created at this point being his dad's money patsy. Yet, literally this poor guy, man. Think about this. We're talking about a human being who has zero sense of self and whose only sense of self is created by the external. Okay? So we're talking about the consciousness changes that we're going to be looking at in the United States going into 2020. Now, there's a lot of people that support Donald Trump. There's a whole bunch. Yet there's also a whole bunch of people that are looking at that particular illusion consciousness and going, oh, God, that guy needs a hug and a barbecue and to just be listened to for who he is for 5 minutes, not having to pretend to be this person. Talk about a fractured psyche there. Wow. That's rough. And now when I look into the money, because I follow the money all over the place, it's fun to follow money energy. I follow all this money energy coming in from Russia into the United States, all this money energy that's flooding into Kentucky. And then I learned that apparently Mitch McConnell had voted against sanctions in Russia so that a very powerful Russian oligarch could build this huge aluminum company down in Kentucky. And of course, that's jobs for people. Of course it is. Yet I'm just like, wow, there's so much intention in money. There's so much intention in money. And obviously, the players in the crosshairs right now happen to have an R by their name. And when Bill Clinton was in office and all of that stuff was going down with the Monica Lewinsky scandals and all the payoffs, I was following the money then, going, oh, Bill, just say you did it. Try to pray to God your Scorpio wife doesn't kill you in your sleep and just move on with your life, man. Because that money energy was soaked with, oh my God, I got to shut this up. So, everything that we're looking at is about, in this portion of 2019 into 2020, is about consciousness and how do we choose to align ourselves. Now, I'm talking about political candidates because we're going to have a lot of chatter in the politicosphere coming up here. And I really, this is your homework, okay? I really want you to evaluate how your body feels when you realize that you're hearing certain verbiage. Fight for this, fight for that, fight for this, jobs, border, wall. Feel how your body feels. And if your cells are just kind of vibrating like you need a Silkwood shower because it's just kind of oogie and you can't get it off of you, that's because the vibration that's hitting your chi, your body, is literally, are you ready for this? It's from a bygone era. It's from an old dimension. We are ascending as a species. What does that mean? It means that we are physically, intellectually, and spiritually changing. We're evolving. And we are evolving hyper rapidly because of our climate change. So we are evolving to solve problems. We are evolving to want to band together as a species to protect ourselves from Mother Nature. We are evolving past the predetermined sociopathic consumerist way of separating us through politics, through religion, and through consumer habits, through brand names. We are evolving past the partitioning in this ascension process and getting down to the nubbin of what we're actually all about as a spirit. And we're starting to bleed that through our physical life. Seriously, gang, I wish I could, I seriously wish I had an HDMI port in the side of my head and I could just plug a cable in and plug it into a giant 500 million foot flat screen and show you all what I'm talking about. Because what these angels show me on a regular basis is we are shifting and changing genetically as a species. Human beings, we have those, I always talk about the lower 12 in our DNA, the DNA rungs that begin to vibrate and begin to release spiritual gifts and talents and awareness and intelligence, spiritual intelligence, vibrational intelligence. We are evolving at such a rapid rate, not as the same type of generational evolution that we've seen throughout anthropology. This is not generational evolution. This is vibrational and cellular evolution happening at a rate that is so quick that people are coming up with what we call ascension symptoms. Yeah. I mean, how many of you have had, who are not 50-year-old women? I'm saying that from a 50-year-old women perspective as I get into this. However, how many of you out there have had weird sleeping patterns, have felt foggy-headed, have felt like you were caught between two worlds? Have you woken up and actually had that weird sensation of, God, I don't think any of this is real. Is this real? What the hell is happening? Have you had that little blink and then thought to yourself, okay, I'm losing it. Of course this is real. This is my house. And you're noodling on your iPhone or you're noodling on your Android and all of a sudden this thing hits you that's like, God, this isn't real. I'm in the Matrix. What the hell? I have that happening a lot lately, which is really fun. And it's an indicator that there is a bigger separation between the old world vibration of fear, limitation, and hubris and anger and rage. There's a vibrational separation between that being the only reality and the rest of the world. I mean, it's insane. I was noodling around doing something on my phone. I don't even know what. I think I was checking the Road Angel page. Our production manager and the producer, Mary Erickson and Melissa Siana, had said to me, to check the page. There was some email and there were some comments and whatnot. So I was just checking the page. And while I was checking the page, I got hit broadside up the head with the weirdest sensation that everything that I was feeling was like everything in that world, the virtual realm, Facebook, whatever. It hit me so powerfully that none of it at all was real. I can't even describe this. I kind of dropped the phone on the couch. I was like, okay. I need to go outside and put my feet in the grass and really ground through this ascension process. People talk about ascension symptoms as being nauseated, not being able to eat. By the way, everybody, that's also 5G symptoms. So if you have a lot of 5G hitting you all over the place, it doesn't feel very good. So it could be a game show. Is it ascension symptom or 5G oversaturation? Lord, the times we live in. So, how do we get through all of this? How do we get through looking at our political candidates, toting the old world, saying fight, fight, fight? How do we get through our cellular structure actually evolving at such a fast rate that we can barely keep up with it? How do we accept that, yes, we kind of feel like we're living in two weird realities at the same time? Because we are, because the ascended, if you want to call it the ascended reality, or really it's a bonded reality. The bonded reality hasn't quite got here yet. It's making its way through our cells, and our cells are adjusting to that resonation. It's a vibrational issue. What do we do? Well, connection, human connection will snap you out of that matrix faster than anything. Human connection, love, laughter, spending time with people, playing music. If you play music, that will completely dissolve the old world illusion around you. The vibration of music is very, very high. And right now, the last vestiges of the old world vibration, think about it like a smoke that's just hanging in the air. We need to turn on a fan and just suck that smoke outside and let it dissipate, because, really the old world vibration, when compared to the new resonation that our cells are actually preparing for, okay? And that's what's going on. People are having weirdo health problems. People are getting dry mouth. They get dry eyes. They're not sure why they can't sleep. Our cells are changing. And why would the cells change? Why? Because that's the nature of evolution. You have those frogs down in South America, and if you have a bunch of female frogs, one of them will genetically turn into a male so the species can propagate itself. Okay? We change all the time. And it's not like the one frog had to go generation to generation to generation to become a male. It literally just turns into a male over a period of weeks. So, yes, our genetics are prone to instantaneous shifting because everything is attached to the quantum field. The consciousness is raising. Love is coming forward. We don't want to fight, fight, fight. We want to heal, heal, heal. We want to evolve, evolve, evolve. We don't want to go after a president of the United States because we want his head on a stake. We want to root out lawlessness that is driven by big money, that we have allowed as a nation to take precedent. And believe me, Donald Trump just flouts his money because that's what he does. There have been lots of other presidents that have had big sociopathic money behind them on both sides of the aisle. We're just seeing this extremely amazing display of old world banner waving while our cells are literally resonating and shifting to the new world. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the new world is there and we are shifting into it. It tells you that the new world is prepared already and we're shifting into our consciousness to go accept it. That's what it tells you. And that quantum field that we're all attached to, the quantum field that I talk about all the time, where everything is possible, that quantum field is holding a space for all of us to enact these amazing vibrational superpowers and get our head in the game and be able to do things like heal water vibrationally. That's a thing. There is documentation where people take canisters of perfectly clean water and throw it into filthy, filthy polluted lakes. And the water will imprint, the dirty water will take a vibrational cue and imprint from the healthy water that it can see through the glass, and it imitates it and it dumps all of the toxins out of the water molecule and onto the bottom of the lake. We know this is a technology. I mean, it's the same way, in it for a different reason, obviously, but it's the same way that a female frog can survey 200 other female frogs and say, oh, we're all going to die because there's no male, and the body can imprint into what is needed. That is an effect of the quantum field. We are all part of the quantum field. So I find it interesting that we have one presidential candidate who actually talks about this stuff, Marianne Williamson, and she may or may not even be allowed. She's going to the debates now. She's going to be on the nationally televised debates. She may or may not even be allowed to air into the area of politics because presidents are placed, gang. They're not voted in, as we saw in 2016. Hillary Clinton is actually the 45th president of the United States. Yet who is the sitting president is Donald Trump. Because it's very easy to usher in who we want. And I'll say it all the time. The powers that be were not prepared for what Barack Obama did because it was at such a grassroots level, it went underneath of the giant, massive fence. And they were like, oh, shoot, well, we missed that one. Okay, well. But generally, presidents, our vote does count. You need to get out there and vote, especially in this election, because they're going to be watching those poll places like a hawk. It's going to be really hard to fake another election, gang. And I know, people voted for Donald Trump, and I'm not taking away those votes. I'm just simply saying he wasn't actually the winner. Yet he is the sitting president. And you can't take something that's not yours. You're going to have problems with it, okay? And he's had problems in this presidency ever since. Because thank God he's in the presidency because we are learning some amazing lessons. That had Hillary Clinton been allowed to go through the portal and allowed to ascend to the presidency and take her seat, we wouldn't be having these conversations. We'd still be stuck in the old Democratic Republican pit of fighting. So what we can look forward to going into this 2019 and 2020 cycle is being kind to yourself. This is the time for downsizing. This is the time for, really getting together with the people that matter to you and making sure that your social and family bonds are healed and in a good place. If you had falling out with people over political issues a couple of years ago, gang, listen, you got to do what's right for you. I'm not preaching at you, okay? I'm simply telling you that the dynamics of the new world are going to call to you to heal that which is wounded in yourself and in others. And for some people, that just means this was a good excuse to say goodbye permanently to people who are toxic in their life, be it friends, family members, loved ones, whatever. So be it, I guess. Yet know that the feminine time frame, know that 2019 into 2020 is going to ask us all to give away our externalized version of ourselves, who we thought we were, who we needed to build ourselves up as. This time frame is going to ask us to give it away, to come out with every single superpower you actually know you have and you've been talking yourself out of having. That's what this time frame is all about. And connecting with people, connecting with nature, connecting with something that is purposeful outside of the needs of the self. This is how we shake off the feeling of ascension symptoms. This is how we get rid of that weird, freaky feeling that we're just living in a haze or a matrix or like this life isn't real. Guess what? You're picking up on something. You're picking up on that sociopathic drone that actually wanted to set a weird, I would put it, partitioning system over the top of your consciousness and psyche and have you live within it. That's what you're picking up isn't real. And now my head's full of jingles. I was thinking back to the 70s. My baloney has a first name. Remember that one? So all of that imprinting. And here we are, literally with our toes on the horizon of a brand new world. So as we go forward, watch how your body responds to media messaging. Watch how your body responds to Facebook messaging, to Instagram. That's why people are migrating to Instagram. It's really hard to be a jerk on Instagram. You have to work really hard. I think the whole time I've been on Instagram, I've only actually had one troll. One. That's pretty good. And on Facebook anymore, you'll notice that the nasty, trolly, rotten comments where, somebody jumps in and starts ragging on somebody else and railing them to death, you'll notice that even that has dropped off to a large degree. That was huge when we were in the dimension of chaos and fear in 2016, 17, 18, and 19, we came out of it. So I want you to note that what we can look forward to in this portion of the United States is a massive change in how we deal with one another. And there is no such thing as righteous marginalization. There is no such thing as righteous hatred. It's not righteous to decide that people of color are lesser human beings. That's not righteous. It's an opinion. And the hubris that it takes to make it into righteousness just reeks of fear. And Marianne Williamson is the only, again, this isn't a plug for Marianne Williamson. I'm just thinking about all our political candidates out there. Again, there's been a few folks, Kamala Harris, and I think we've had a few other folks out there talking about the fear consciousness. But Marianne Williamson works in spiritual physics, so she calls it right out. Now, do I think Marianne's going to make it to the presidency? Well, I think that'd be super cool if she did. I'm guessing that's probably not going to happen because I'm not sure that's her role. I think her role might be there to show what's possible, to start dialogue, to start conversations, to show a difference in consciousness on a national debate stage between the fight, and the we need to bring love and compassion back into this. I mean, it's a thing, right? So it's not about the end game. The feminine time frame, this time frame isn't about the end game like the masculine time frame. This time frame is about observing where you are at now. What do you feel like now? You know how many people I know are having massive meltdowns because the same job that they've done for the last 10 years or 15 years or whatever, they don't want to do it anymore. They can't explain it. Maybe their business is doing great. They just don't want to do it anymore. They don't want to. So why is that? Is it a mass rash of midlife crises, even though some of these people are in their 30s? I don't think so. That is cellular resonant evolution. This is the time frame of love. And remember, as you're going through this time period, one of my favorite things to say when I personally encounter old programming in myself, I mean, I came from the old world. I'm 50 years old. I came from the old world. And when I encounter fear and judgment, when I encounter weird little needs to polarize something so I understand it, when I get those little tiny crispy nuggets that rear up in the cereal of my consciousness and my teeth crack on them as I'm chewing my own thoughts, when that happens, I literally say out loud, I stop what I'm doing. It's a cue that vibrates. I can feel it in my body. I can feel, it doesn't happen super often, but I'm a human being and it does come up. And when it does happen, I cue myself because my body feels it. My body feels this slow, weird, old vibration that just needs to go by the wayside. My body feels it. And my body is like, that's not right. So I say out loud, I invoke the law of love. I invoke the law of love. I invoke the law of love. And the law of love, that was given to me actually by the Oturan, or we like to call them Arcturians. The Oturan really, I'll save you the story, but put me through quite a number of paces to teach me the power of losing one's fear. And that's kind of the Yoda trick too. You got to put the fear aside. I invoke the law of love means that love comes in. I put love first. Love will handle it. Love will handle the situation, and love will take care of it. In order to do that, I've got to have the F word. I have to have some faith that the vibration of love actually is the most powerful thing in the universe, and it is. And obviously, gang, obviously, I can hear people in the future, actually, I'm hearing in the future, listening to this podcast going, oh my goodness, so somebody's mugging you and beating you in the face and taking your purse and you're supposed to just stand there and say, I invoke the law of love. That's not what I'm talking about, people. You know that. I'm talking about when we get into a place of buying in to the encoded fear in our cells, and it is encoded in our cells for generations. We have biological fear and psychological fear. And when we feel our body responding in that old world way, when we just want to crouch down and squat down and pucker our face up like we've had 14 buckets of lemons because it's going to keep us safe. Actually, the only thing that does is make lines happen around your mouth. I don't care how old you are. Just saying. I mean, when you feel that in your body, this is your cue that you are trying to let go of some of the vibrations of the old world that you're packing. Your cells feel it, gang, because we are in an ascension vibration. And what we are looking at in the United States right now, our politics reflect our consciousness. And you watch old Marianne Williamson get a massive response at the debates, and you watch a lot of other candidates begin to shift their message. Now, there's a few that won't. There's a few who are going to stay right on point. They've been doing this forever, and that's what they do. And that's who they are, and that's fine. Yet you watch. I'm watching it in the future right now. I'm watching that debate stage. I'm watching Marianne come out and say things and the audience clapping like crazy. And I am watching after the debates because everybody's prepared their answers. So everybody's going to stay on script. But after the debates, I'm going to watch the polling come out and I'm watching other candidates begin to change their narrative. So do I think it'd be cool if a candidate like Marianne Williamson won the presidency? Well, yeah, actually, I think that'd be really cool. I feel her role in all of this is to reset the narrative. And it's interesting because I recognize that resonation that's driving Marianne Williamson right now. Not to say she doesn't want to be president. I'm sure she does. And she's got some really good plans. Yet I recognize the role she's playing on a much, 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 much smaller, much, 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 much less, lesser, quite honestly, scale. It was the same reason I ran for mayor of Billings, Montana in 2017. Billings, who hadn't had a female run for mayor in 40 years. Billings, which, is technically a purple town, yet it tends to roll in its civic government in a very conservative manner. I was asked to run by the universe. I did run for mayor, and my slogan was Lead with Love. And I saw that Tulsi Gabbard came out with the Lead with Love thing, and I thought that was so cool. I had a bunch of people writing to me because our Lead with Love slogan, when I was running for mayor of Billings, Montana, we put out this Lead with Love campaign on Facebook, and it took off and it went global. Oh my God, I had people writing to me from Australia saying, do you mind if I use your Lead with Love slogan because I've decided to step up and run for my school board in my district? I had people from Canada writing to me saying, do you mind if I use your Lead with Love slogan because I've decided to run for whatever their equivalent was of a city council and I want to use it? I had people from France writing, say, do you mind if I use this? There's a local race that I want to use this in. And I said, of course not. Use it. We can all lead with love. I mean, that wouldn't be a very loving thing. No, you can't. I've trademarked Lead with Love. Good God. No, I didn't. That's insane. So when I saw that Tulsi Gabbard used Lead with Love on her campaign materials, I don't think Tulsi Gabbard got that from me, for crying out loud. By that time, like I said, this was in 2017. So in 2018 and 19, by that time, Lead with Love was every place. We were hearing news anchors saying we need to lead with love. I mean, we were all receiving the same transmission from the universe. So when I look at Marianne Williamson, and I look at the fact that she's going to change the narrative at these debates, and she's going to change, and I hope these candidates can live up to it because she can, and I don't know that others can. She's going to change the languaging that people want to hear coming out of our leaders. I mean, it's a big thing. And just watch all this. Never take my word for it, gang. Always use your own consciousness, use your own eyes, ears, senses, sixth sense, all of it. And watch what's happening. And pay attention to your body because we are going to see tremendous unveiling when the emperor's new clothes are stripped off, not just from poor Donald Trump, and I'm just cringing for him and his family. I really am. I mean, that would literally be like being skinned alive because that's all he's got is this facade built by his dad. It's awful. No human being should feel how he's going to feel. And I know people are like, he's earned it, he's deserved it. No, you know what? Well, maybe it's karmic. Maybe it's a lesson for him. I still don't have to be happy for him that he's going to be suffering because it's going to suck for him. And that doesn't make me happy. I'm sorry. Do I want to vote for the guy? Well, no. Do I think he's doing a great job? Not really. That's my own personal opinion. Do I want him to suffer? No. That defeats the purpose of the healing. That defeats the great purge that we've been through. And it's pulling the old world forward. The I have to squash someone to make myself feel better. I don't. I can give somebody a hug I disagree with. I can love on somebody and be kind to somebody who has modalities under their psychological hood that I can't even imagine enacting, because all I can see are those wounds in action in the world. And that doesn't make me a saint. It's just what I see, because I see energies. Doesn't mean I don't want to push some people in the mud, okay? I am human. Gang, this has been really fun. I don't do very many predictive podcasts, only because things really do change, and the way that the future is going to roll out is completely up to us. It's not up to some big dice roller in the sky. It's not up to some lottery number. It's up to us. So as you go forward, observe how your body feels. Connect with people. Connect with nature. Turn off your devices more. Play music. Get into water. Enact connection. When you feel your body getting sick because the old world is just rattling your cage, trying to get you to marginalize others, to create dissonance instead of love, when you feel your body reacting to god-awful messages, pay attention, because you are ascending. Your cellular structure, the nature of what you are, is transforming like a Marvel movie. This is actually happening right now. And we can continue to believe it's not happening and wonder why, like the snake in the hole, our skin is covering our eyes because it's a natural function of shedding, or we can understand the cycle, get out of our hole, and go enjoy the sunshine. I love you all. Sending love to my Midwestern friends with all of this crazy, crazy weather. And may we all enact our highest design as we bring our own superhero powers forward in the next year and a half. Everybody, I will see you next week.